What up, IDS Mob? Welcome to Harry Dating Conversations. I'm your host, HarryWilmington, and today's show, we're going to be talking about dating after divorce. The reason I wanted to do this show is because, quite frankly, somebody wrote me that's going through a divorce and had some questions as it relates to trying to connect with women and hook up with them. And so I want to answer his question, and then I also want to give you guys some tips that may have gone through a divorce and are trying to get back out there on the saddle. Just some tips that I think could help you out. Now, I'll do full disclosure. I have not been divorced before, and so you can take that bit of knowledge and run with it. You might decide, well, he hasn't been through a divorce. What is he talking about? I know I've had several long-term relationships that, when they ended, I had to get back out there and I had to, start dating again. And it is not the same journey as somebody that's gone through a divorce and has had kids and whatnot, but I still think that I can add to the conversation. And I also know that across the board, people generally don't date well. And so people that are going through a divorce, ultimately, that happened in part because they chose the partner wrong. And so if I can help you as you're getting out into the dating world, be able to know how to be a better person and also know how to choose better, then I would hope that would be valuable information that you can run with, okay? So we're gonna talk about that. As always, the show is brought to you by introvertdatingsuccess.com. You can go there to get one-on-one coaching as well as my eBooks, audiobooks, and various programs, all designed to help you date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. You can also go there now to check out my free webinar, 3 nice guy dating patterns that turn women off and what to do instead. If you've been stuck in a pattern of feeling like you're the nice guy and you keep doing the same things over and over again, but you don't know what you're doing or what you need to change to get more effective with women, then this free webinar will help you out. So check that out at the link at introvertdatingsuccess.com. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get into this guy's question. So I had a guy leave a question under one of my videos. And he says, I'm dating again after a divorce, and the last time I was dating was in 2011. I am age 45 and have been dating women in their early to mid 40s. So I'm gonna read through his questions first, and then we'll go back and go through this bit by bit, because he's got a lot that I wanna answer to. So he asks, what is the average number of dates before a woman is open to hooking up nowadays? Do subgroups, women in their 40s, single moms, highly educated people, introvert versus extrovert, women of a certain religion, past abusive relationships / traumas versus lack thereof, etc., skew this average in either direction from what you've seen? Are there any fairly reliable signs from a woman or characteristics of interaction with a woman that indicate hooking up is fast approaching? Based on historical experience, that's his own personal historical experience, I find it's around 6 to 10 dates, or maybe 1.5 to 3 months or so, generally once a reliable dating pattern and comfort are established. I've read in online articles that 3 dates is now the average, but that hasn't happened to me yet. Any thoughts are greatly appreciated. So first off, guy, I'm sorry you went through a divorce. Like I said, I've had long-term relationships that broke up, that I was dating the person for 5 or 6 years, and that it's painful and it's heartbreaking. And then you go through this phase of how do I start over? What do I do, So hopefully you're getting some healing on that journey for yourself. But in terms of your questions, I have so much to say because a lot of your questions are dealing with as it pertains to hooking up with a woman. And so I definitely want to dive into that because your experience and what can be accomplished if you know what you're doing are 2 dramatically different things. And so we're gonna go over that. So let's start with the first part, right? This isn't even the hookup part. This is just the part you say, I am age 45 and have been dating women in their early to mid 40s. So I will say this, for one, you need to stretch out your dating range. Realistically, you as a 45-year-old guy, you can date from 21 to realistically 49, 50 or whatever, right? But I stress, do not feel weird or bad or that's gonna be off-putting if you date a woman that's 5, 10, 15 years younger than you. You might have the conundrum of but what will we talk about? Her generation is different. I can assure you, I've dated much younger than me, and you can find women that will be able to get on your program because you as the guy are supposed to be the leader anyway. And so the right woman that has a good head on her shoulders, but understands the dynamic of female to male relationships, she's gonna wanna follow your lead and do what you say. And so to that end, you're gonna find that younger women typically have less baggage and will be quicker to get on your program than older women. Now, this is not me dissing older women because I've also dated women that were like 6 months to a year older than me before, okay? So, but I'm just saying, don't shut off the avenue of you being able to date younger women, okay? If people want to make commentary about it, you're not going to care when she's jumping up and down on your pelvis in the bedroom. Real talk. So that's the first thing. But second thing is this, is that if you are sticking to the idea of dating women that are in their early to mid 40s, I would also suggest like late 30s, that's pretty darn close. Most of the women you're dating by that time have already gone through their fair share of relationships. Most of them are probably gonna either have kids by somebody that they were married to or never married to, or they will have already been married and divorced themselves, you know? And so because of this, you're gonna actually find, at least in my experience, I found that dating women at that age, they're not gonna be on the same program that they were when they were in their early 20s, where it was like, oh no, I gotta make a guy wait 3 or 4 months to hook up with me, and I gotta make sure he's the right guy, and I gotta make sure that he's there for me and not just to hook up. By the time a woman gets to her late 40s, for starters, women's like peak sexual urges are at like 35. Like ours peter out at like 18 to 24. Theirs is just getting at the level where they want to do it more often at like 35. So if you're sticking to women that are in their late 30s, early 40s, they are already thinking about hooking up with you on date one. That doesn't mean that they'll do it on date one necessarily, but they're already thinking about how will he be in bed? Because at that age, they're not trying to play around. They're not trying to wait forever to see if you're a good lay or if you guys have a chemistry. They want to start finding this stuff out sooner than later. And so to that end, they will be more open to the idea of hooking up with you faster. Now, the caveat is you have to know what to do on dates, what kind of conversations to have, and how to make her feel as if she can trust you enough to want to have that kind of hookup with you early on. And bonus tip, it doesn't take long. Like most women, if they're single in their 40s, quite honestly, either they're divorced, which means their husband sucked, or they feel as though their husband sucked. They could be the issue, but that's a different show. Or they've had such sucky dating experiences that if you can just show an ounce of something that indicates that you have a good head on your shoulders, you're somewhat emotionally stable, and you're not trying to be overly needy and desperate for her attention, that's usually enough to make her feel like, oh, this guy totally gets women, I'm down to hook up with him, okay? And so we'll get into more, to keep that in mind though, as we go into the rest of your questions, okay? That women in their early 40s, but when I was dating women in my 20s, they were open to it, but more so as I dated in my 30s and then now in my 40s, the older women got, the more apt they were to be willing and open to hook up in an earlier time frame. But also part of this goes to, they're looking at how am I leading the interaction. If I'm leading the interaction whereby I'm the one that's waiting, I'm the one that's stalling, or I'm only asking certain questions here or there to slowly get to know them, they're gonna think, oh, he wants to hook up in a slower time frame. Because women usually are gonna fall into what you're doing and how you're leading, you know? Yes, women might be like, I don't wanna look like I'm promiscuous, so I'm gonna delay it by a little bit, but it's no like 7 or 8 dates. Like usually after 2 or 3 good, solid dates, I found they're typically like all systems go, you know? But again, this goes to, you have to know what to do. You have to know maybe there are some dating patterns you have now that are causing you to trip up a bit and not quite get the results as fast as you would like. You can check out my webinar, 3 Nice Guy Dating Patterns That Turn Women Off and What to Do Instead. Just learning what patterns not to do will allow you to have a leg up in terms of being able to hook up with women that you're dating a lot faster, all right? But anyway, let's get to your questions, because I really love your questions, Guy. So, first question, what is the average number of dates before a woman is open to hooking up nowadays? The reality, the honest answer is it depends on how you're presenting yourself and what you're doing. So I find this, I'm a guy that's very, very even keel. I don't go into dates expecting a hookup. I was a virgin until I was 23. I have told women that have told me, well, I'm not gonna hook up with you after the first date. My response is always the same. I was a virgin until I was 23. I can outweight you. Because most women that I went out with, they lost their virginity at 15, 17, 20, 21. Like, so I win. So because of that, I never grew up with the idea of having to pressure women to hook up because I was never in the practice of that. I think too many guys either, when they're dating or when they're in bad marriages, they're constantly trying to beg for sex or try to push it towards sex, and that causes them to not be successful in that realm. So to that sense, in terms of the average number, as you get better at knowing how to really connect with women, but do it in a way where you're connecting, but you're not showing off a desperation for her to have to be your specific person, that's gonna cause her to not feel any force from you to make the thing that you're trying to do with her a relationship. And that now makes her think, oh, he's not trying to pressure me, which means if I want to do some stuff, that's great. But if I don't want to, he's not gonna feel any kind of way about it. And that level of freeness, it's weird, but in a woman's mind, if she feels as though you're not gonna be pissed off whether she wants to hook up with you or not, and that it's her choice, it'll make her wanna do it faster. And so in terms of my dating life, I have found it's taken an average of, I kid you not, 0 dates to like 2.5 dates. Meaning I've done it where I met a girl, whether it was at a party or a function or with friends, and we were hooking up that same night, or I would say, okay, we went on a first date, we'd be hot and heavy at the end of the date, and I'd be like, oh, I wanna wait, and I would like leave her to be and make her wait until the next time when we would then hook up. I've also had it where I personally made women wait like 2 or 3 months because I was like, you know what? I need to really make sure that this is gonna be a thing, so I wanna wait. So it really boils down to, again, women are gonna be, even though we say, like in this sphere, we say, women decide when sex happens and men decide when relationships happen. Well, the reality is, if you're a guy that knows what you're doing, you also then take control of when the hookup's gonna happen. But the key is you can't make it look like she's on a time frame. Like you can't go to a date and be like, well, it's been 3 dates, we haven't hooked up, what's going on? Because now it doesn't give her the idea or thought that this is her choice. So the goal is you give the illusion that it is her choice, but you make her feel things in a way where she wants to make the choice to hook up with you. And this isn't through like magic or through tricking women. I've literally gone on dates where I just have a great conversation with a woman, I make her laugh, I ask about her life, we have a great time, and then she just feels open to it, and I just say some stuff like, hey, so like, I don't know if you want this date to end or not, I can take you home, or we can just go to my place and watch a movie. That's it. Nothing in what I've said is come to my place and hook up with me. But you have to also know how to speak in women's language. Women speak in passive language. I made the mistake in college of trying to invite women over to my place for dinner and a movie, because I was still a virgin, because I wanted to share a meal with somebody and watch a good movie and not be alone. I didn't know at the time that was code to women for, hey, come over and hook up with me. So when I asked like 4 women one time to come over for dinner and a movie, and they all rejected me, I didn't understand it. And then I had the 5th woman that I asked, and she said, well, I'm busy in class, I'm studying for a test. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. 5 minutes later, ding dong, or ring, ring, ring. Hey, so I can come over now. I didn't know that in that time frame, she probably talked to her girlfriends, and they were probably like, wait, he wants you to come over for dinner and a movie. Girl, then you gotta go over there because he's gonna wanna hook up with you. Like, I didn't get that. So if you learn to speak in a language whereby a woman can just, because here's the thing, with women, if you're trying to suggest a hookup, you can't come out and just say, hey, let's come to my place and boom. Because you gotta think about what women are gonna do once this date is over. They're gonna go to other women and they're gonna say, hey, what happened? If she tells the story of, well, he said, hey, come to my place and hook up, and then we hooked up, she's gonna look like the biggest hussy, if that's still used as the term, right? The biggest hussy to her friends. But if you suggest a scenario that she can go to and things just happen to happen, the women she tells the story to later will be more understanding of that story. So if you say, "Oh yeah, hey, we should after this, if you want to come up and see some of my artwork in my apartment, I got some really great artwork from such and such." Or hey, if you want to come up for a little bit, we can play some like board games real quick because you seem like a really fun person to play board games with. Okay, then you've now given her the excuse in her head she can use to go up to your place because you're not asking her to hook up, you're asking her just to get to know her more and to spend more of a fun eating with her by watching dinner and a movie, which she knows is code, but she appreciates that you gave her the excuse she can use to later say, oh, we were watching dinner and a movie and the next thing I know, like, we just happen to do stuff. So if you learn to speak the passive language to women, then you can make your average go from 6 to 8 dates to like 1 or 2 dates really quick. Anyway, second question. Do subgroups, women in the 40s, single moms, highly educated people, introvert versus extrovert, women of a certain religion, past abuse, relationships, traumas, lack thereof, skew this average in either direction from what you've seen? No. How do I know this? Because I've dated all these. I've dated the woman in her 40s before. I tried to date a single mom, guys, like one time. Her schedule was hella booked up because she had like a 1 or 2 year old, so that wasn't happening, but still got to hook up. Highly educated. I've dated some very, very smart women, hooked up with some very, very smart women. I've hooked up with extroverts, women of a certain religion, no religion, women have had trauma. Like, this goes back to, if you're a guy that knows the ins and outs of how to present himself on dates in a natural way. I'm not trying to tell you to present yourself in a way that's inauthentic. You should be showing the best version of yourself, but ideally you're showing a version that if she starts to date you, you'd be like, yeah, this pretty much checks out. This is kind of how it was from date one, okay? Now, you might have some bad habits to get rid of, which you can watch my webinar to figure out what some of those are. But suffice to say, once you kind of learn the ins and outs of how this actually works and how attraction works for women and the kinds of things they enjoy talking about and how to make her naturally feel more attraction to you, then it doesn't matter what category she lands in, you're gonna be able to hook up. I don't care if she's the most pious woman in the world or the most anti-religious person, or if she's an introvert that never goes out of her house, she'll make the exception for you. And she never comes out of her shell, but she will for you, because you're gonna know how to bring that out of her to where she's gonna trust you enough to where she's gonna want to make that decision to hook up with you, okay? So, no. Last question. Are there any fairly reliable signs from a woman or characteristics of interaction with a woman that indicates that a hookup is fast approaching? And this is really your biggest problem right here, is that you're trying to look for, okay, I need to know that she's doing X, Y, and Z, so I'll know that, oh, she's about to give me sex. And that's not how this works. How this works is, I tell women on dates, especially ones that are like apprehensive or thinking like, I'm like all the other guys who are gonna try to hook up. I say, look, my only goal here is to try to get to know you in whatever capacity that means. If that means we go out and have dinner and we go out for actual dates and we might come back here and watch a movie or whatever and we don't hook up at all, I'm just here to get to know you. Now I don't take away from women that a hookup could happen, because especially a lot of nice guys, they'll make the mistake of like, a woman will say like, are you just here for sex? And he'll be like, no, I wasn't even thinking, I would never, I'm not trying to. Guys, we all want sex, okay? So you can't lie to women, because if you say, I'm not here for sex, one, the woman's gonna know you're lying, but also even if that is true, she's gonna be thinking, but if I like him at some point, I want sex, is he gonna now judge me because I want sex, because he's now saying he doesn't? Because you're thinking her question means that she wants you to say you're not just here for sex. And what she wants to know is that you're here to get to know her, but you also find her attractive enough to want a bone. So that's where I came up with the idea of like saying, like I said, I'm here to know you in whatever capacity. If we happen to just do nothing, that's great. But that said, if we happen to add bedroom stuff to it, fantastic. If it comes the next date or 5 dates from now, I'm just here to get to know you. So if that's part of the get to know you process, fantastic. But either way, I'm just here for a fun time. How about you? Okay? Now, when you go with that attitude, it leaves the woman open for feeling that like at any time, if she wants to include a hookup as part of the fun, then she's perfectly in her right to say, hey, let's do that, or let's go to the bedroom or whatever, right? The idea is not to close off that or to not make her feel judged if she decides to make a decision in your favor. And so, especially being a divorced guy, she might be thinking, I don't know how you're coming off on dates, but you might be the guy that's going in and trying to rush the relationship, or trying to, tell her all your feelings or espouse all this stuff, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But suffice to say, depending on how you're coming to the situation, is gonna make her think, oh, either A, okay, this guy's over his divorce, he's over his ex, and so if I hook up with him, it's not gonna be a bad thing. Or she could be thinking, oh my God, this guy's not over his ex yet. If I hook up with him and then he goes back to his ex, I'm gonna be left in the cold, And so you gotta really look at, how are you presenting yourself to women? Are you presenting yourself as a guy that is over the situation? Are you presenting yourself as a guy that has learned from your marriage and what you did wrong, and you're now in a happy place and you're able to move on with no bitter resentment towards your ex-wife? Or are you coming on dates trying to air out grievances and trying to do all these other things that we'll talk about in a minute? If you are, then that's going to also push back your sex timeline, because she's gonna be thinking, whoa, he just got out of, she's gonna go back to girlfriends and say, I'm dating this divorced guy. He said he's only been divorced for a couple of months. And so like, I don't know if that means that if I hook up with him, like what that's gonna mean. If he's gonna try to be super serious with me, is he gonna think this is a thing now? Or is it too early on it? How do I know that he's over his ex? Like, you gotta figure that out. If you figure that out, then when you're on these dates and you're presenting yourself as a guy that like, hey, I had a marriage situation. It didn't work out. I went to therapy. I learned how I could be better. And so I'm ready for the next situation. But, I don't hold any animosity towards her. She was overall a great person. It just wasn't the right situation for either of us in the long run, But now I'm here for you. And, hey, what's up with you? You go in with that attitude, you make her laugh on the date, you be funny. And most importantly, do not focus on trying to get sex. That is the result that you can get if you're focusing on just showing her a good time. But you should not have that be the end game focus. You need to recognize when she's starting to do things that indicate that she's ready for it, and which goes to this, in terms of your question, yes, there are definitely signals that will indicate that a woman could perceivably be open to possibly hooking up, all right? So that's things like she's walking close to you, she's touching your arm and leg when you're talking, all the standard signs, women looking at your lips and looking up at your eyes. Big sign is and this is why I don't typically try to invite myself in women's places, because the biggest sign you can get of a woman being ready to hook up with you is if she invites you into her place. So you should be, after that first date, trying to see if you can pick her up from her place to then drop her off later. And what I found this, right? Like, again, I don't invite myself in. I'll get to the front of the woman's apartment or house or whatever, and then I'll get out of the car and I'll be a gentleman and I'll walk her either to her door or as close to her door as she is comfortable with me doing. At that point, I'll say, I had a great time, blah, blah, might go in for a kiss. And then at that point, if she doesn't say, hey, come in, I know, wait till the next date. And then I just walk off. I don't sit there and beg. I don't say, hey, I need to come and use your bathroom real quick. I don't try to use any kind of tactic to get into her place. Women that want to hook up with you will invite you into their place to do some stuff, okay? And they won't say, hey, come to my place for a hookup. They'll say like, hey, come in for some coffee. Hey, why don't you come in real quick and let me show you that artwork that I was talking about at dinner. Oh, hey, why don't you come in real quick and like just, it's kind of cold out here. Let's just wait for the traffic to die down. Come to my place. Anytime a woman is inviting you into her place, subconsciously, that means that she is open to a hookup. Now, that doesn't mean it has to happen, and there could be a lot of things that go wrong that make her change her mind. And if she changes her mind, gentlemen, very important, don't do anything, because I don't need you to be one of these cases where it's like, oh, I invited him in, but then I changed my mind. And if she changes her mind, stop whatever you're doing and don't move forward, all right? But yeah, if she invites you into her place, that is all systems go. And at that point, what's going to be weird for you, though, is that she's going to invite you in, and you're going to be thinking, okay, she invited me in, but like, what's her next move? No, the next move is your move, because she's basically opening up herself to what you're going to do next. Because as the guy, as a woman, she's still going to want you to lead this interaction. So you get into her place, for example, at that point, you're thinking, okay, so what do I look for next to see? No. You got to make bold moves. You might kiss her a bit more passionately as soon as you close the door. You might start trying to like touch on her shoulder a bit. You might get on the couch and start talking to her while you're watching a movie, and then try to like do the arm around where you're cuddling up to her. And then you just slowly kind of progress. And these are the parts where you're going to be making these bold, daring moves that you might be thinking, oh my God, like, should I be getting consent for these? Is this okay? This is that. My thing is this. Yes, consent is important, but I find that if you've gone a step a step further than a woman's comfortable with at the moment, she will tell you. Like, if you're trying to, touch her shoulders and she's liking that, and then you kind of go down to her chest area, if she likes that, your hands will stay there. If not, she'll just kind of like, and she'll just kind of play it off, which means, hey, not yet. And then as she's ready for that, you'll find she'll probably just grab your hand and start putting it there. But the point is that once you get into her place, you got to make the moves, and you have to be bold enough to do that, because women like guys that take action and are leading the situation, okay? And so that's really the best way for you to be able to get a hookup a lot faster. And what's happening now is you're not making your moves fast enough, and you're expecting the woman to lead you in the charge of doing this stuff, which is why it's taking 6 to 7 dates, because when you leave a woman in charge of that stuff, like fully in charge, then what happens is that because you're not taking the lead on anything, she's going to be in her head constantly second guessing, and it's going to take her 6 or 7 days if she's the only one in this thing that's trying to convince herself to hook up with you, versus when you're in the moment and you're doing things that just sweep her off her feet and just pull her out of the way, and this, oh my God, I didn't know this was happening, and he just created a moment and I felt things, and his cologne, and this is that. You create the atmosphere that makes her say, oh, we got to go to Pound Town, all right? So take lessons, take heed of those notes, rewind this part back if you got to, but hopefully some of what I said will help you get into the bedroom a lot faster. And if it does, feel free to write me a comment or write me a message. Let me know that I helped you, because I love hearing those and I love reading them on the show. before we continue on, real quick, whether you've gone through a divorce or whether you're in a marriage now that's on the rocks, or whether you're a guy that is just trying to figure out this whole dating landscape, dating itself and connecting with women and knowing how they operate and function can be its own Herculean task, right? And so that's why I highly recommend you go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and sign up for my new webinar called 3 Nice Guy Dating Patterns That Turn Women Off and What to Do Instead. Because hey, you might be a guy that's just trying to date but can't get in a relationship, or you might be a guy that is in a relationship but is constantly doing things to upset your lady, and you might not be aware that it's simply these 3 patterns that nice guys do time and time again that are unintentionally causing women to be turned off. And I want you to have the knowledge of what you should be doing instead, so that way women will come to you being attracted to you and wanting to be in a relationship with you for the long haul. So if you need help with that, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com right now and click on the button on the front page where you can sign up for the webinar today. You can also see the link right down here in the comment section box. So check that out today. Okay. So now that we've gotten his question out of the way, I just want to give some general thoughts that I had about dating after divorce. Because a lot of you guys, hey, the divorce rate in this country is astronomical. And honestly, the reason for that is because most people, when they're going through the process of choosing a mate, aren't really doing the best job. They might be, taking the first girl that just said yes, they'll hook up with them. Or they might be thinking, well, I'm running out of time and I don't have any options, so I'll just take whoever. Also of note, fun fact, not so fun fact, the divorce rate has gone up significantly since the 60s. Now, what happened in the 60s was that birth control was created. And what birth control does is it messes with women's hormones to where sometimes when they're on birth control, the kind of guy that they would choose when they're under birth control is different from a guy that they would choose were they not on birth control. Because when you're basically with birth control, as I understand it, basically it's like it makes your body think that it's pregnant already. And so that when she's taking birth control, she's looking for a guy that's maybe more nurturing. She's looking for a guy that maybe is a bit more emotional or a bit more in his feminine energy. But then she gets off of that. She gets off of the birth control, she gets married, she's really hooking up with the guy, and then all of a sudden she starts to be less attracted, and part of it's because she's not putting those chemicals in her body anymore that are making her attracted to the more feminine acting guys. So now she's like, oh crap, I don't like this guy anymore, I don't know what happened. And it's because of birth control. So I would say this, guys, if you are in a relationship and you're considering possibly marrying a girl, really have a talk with her about, hey, before we do this, I know this sounds crazy, this guy named Harry told me about this birth control thing, this and that. I need you off of birth control for 2 months. And I will wear all the condoms, I will double up, but I just need to make sure that you're feeling the way you feel about me because you actually like me and not because these chemicals are making you think that I'm attractive when if you don't have them in your body, I'm really not. Hey, I won't be offended either way, but I just want to check that out. So that's just my tip to all guys. Make sure, have a couple of months where she's not on birth control and see if she has the same level of feeling for you, at which point you should be safe, all right? So but that has contributed significantly to the divorce rate in this country. And so the reason that I, not having been divorced, feel that my advice to you is going to be valid is because I'm good at dating, I'm good at getting into relationships, and if you're not good at that, then you were bad at that when you were choosing your first wife, and you need guidance overall on how to be a better picker in terms of who you're trying to date, as well as knowing what kind of person you need to be in the first place in order to really be open and ready for the right woman to come along that's going to be your end-all be-all, right? So I want to start off with some very, very sad negative statistics, which is that the success stats for a divorced man that is going back out there into the market to try to date again and get married again, the failure rate is significantly high. They say 70% of marriages end in divorce. They say 80 to 85% of second marriages end in divorce as well. But why is that? Here's my insight, right? Is that I think that subconsciously, we don't really change the kind of women that we're into and that we like. So you may very well have had a horror of an horror of an ex-wife, right? She was all the horrible things, but you didn't see those red flags when you were dating, or maybe you did, but you were just like, but I want to be with somebody, so what do I care, right? So even though you're out of that situation, you're thinking, the next woman that comes along, she's gonna be different, and we're gonna make it work. And what's more likely to happen is she's probably gonna be the same person. So in effect, the divorce rate for the second marriage is worse because you get with that person and then very quickly realize, oh crap, she's just like my ex-wife and you got to dump her. You're smart enough to dump her sooner, but you're not smart enough, I don't want to call you dumb, but you haven't done the work to be a better picker in the first place and to not fall for the same kind of woman that you fell for at first that you ended up divorcing, you know? So this is why a lot of work has to be done on the front end with you. When you get a divorce, you have to look into what things about her attracted you, what things did you miss out on, why did you miss those things, what kind of traumatic histories did you have, what was your childhood like, what were your parents like, what were the relationships you saw growing up like, to really tap into why it is that you fell for this person in the first place, and then understanding that will help you do the second part, which is start being more conscious of when you're starting to pick people that are similar to women you dated before that did not serve you. And that's gonna be a hard part because our subconscious wants to keep us safe and protected. And part of that means keeping things routine because it's what we're used to. So it can be very uncomfortable when you get back out into the dating market and you're trying to date new women, but they just don't have that thing. They just don't quite click. They just don't do the same things that your ex did that made you feel like she was the one. So be conscious of that because I don't want you to fall for that crap and then end up with the same person in a different skin, you know? Anyway, with that said, just some tips I have for you. So first of all, I wrote some notes here. I said, dating after divorce, there is the temptation to try to date as if you were in a relationship. Do not do this. Because here's the thing, God, up to this, if you've been married for any amount of time, right? You have been in the practice of being with the same person for years on end, whether it's 8 years, 7 years, 10, 20, 30 years, right? So you have gone from being in the habit of dating to being in the habit of being in a relationship. And so what can happen is when you put yourself back out there into the dating world, there are certain rules that apply in the dating world that do not apply in the relationship world and vice versa. And a lot of the things that you are in the practice of are things that will work great in a relationship, but are horrible to do when you first start dating a person. Things like contacting them all the time, seeing them every day, getting out all of your thoughts and feelings on a person that you don't know because you're thinking that's how we quickly bond. No, that's what you do with a person that you trust, that you're in a relationship with and can now open up a bit more about. But piling all that truth and honesty about who you are and your feelings and history of this and that to a person that just met you is going to be overkill. So you have to start to learn what are the differences between what you can do during the dating phase and what it's going to be more acceptable to delay until you get into relationships. And the best part is most women understand this. And I've said this on shows before, like guys are thinking, I gotta do all the honesty. I gotta say all the stuff. I gotta see her all the time in order to get her in a relationship. But that's what you do as a reward to her for getting into the relationship. Until you get the relationship, some of those things that you're doing when you were in a relationship with your ex are things that you need to stop doing right now and put them on a shelf until this person becomes the new relationship, okay? So that's the first thing. And a lot of that is gonna be, by the way, about patience. The hardest part about dating after a divorce or after a long-term relationship is patience. Because if you've been in a relationship for a long time, you have some great relationship skills. The bad part is you're ready to continue to use those skills, which means you might find a woman and be like, okay, we're gonna make this a relationship in like 1 week so I can get back doing all the relationship stuff. And that's how you're gonna burn out. You're gonna burn out because you're gonna go back out there trying to do the stuff in a relationship, trying to get her into a relationship too fast, which to be fair, guys that haven't been married before still do. Like guys are still out there after 2 dates, hey, we should be my girlfriend. Are you seeing anybody else? Get off the dating apps. You gotta go back to square one, guy, which is that there's a certain pacing to dating that is gonna be more effective. You might have failed when you're in your marriage because you were like, after 1 or 2 dates, you guys just moved in together, and then 6 months later, you guys are married, and you've seen it work before, so it's gonna work for you, and it didn't. Because in the rushing the process, you didn't look for red flags, you didn't see how you two were actually incompatible, you didn't have the time to check out if she had a temper or not, you missed out. So this go around, it behooves you to not make that same mistake. So for this time, if you rushed it into the first time, be more patient. Women that have high interest in you are not going anywhere. If you stretch this thing out to 3 or 4 years of dating, if she has high interest, she's not going anywhere. So don't think you gotta try to rush her into a relationship after like a week or two. Even if she's like, because guys will do this too, right? They'll say like, well, we have really good chemistry and it's been like a month of dating and she's all about me, so I think she's the exception. Do not treat any of these women like the exception. That's what you did with your ex, and that's why you're in the situation you're in now. Treat all new women that you meet the same. Put them on the same 3-month dating program, meaning no relationship talk until month 3, at which point she will bring it up. That's typically the average, right? So for you divorce guys that are like, but how do I know if she'll get? It takes a woman on average 2 to 3 months to solidify her feelings. Part of the reason you probably got divorced, if you're being honest with yourself, is because you did not give her that 2 to 3 months, which means she in effect did not get the time she needed to solidify her feelings. And so she you came to her one day like, hey, it's been like 2 weeks, we should be boyfriend and girlfriend. She was like, oh, I guess, because she didn't want to hurt your feelings. She knew you were a good guy. She's like, well, maybe I'll eventually feel things. And there are so many stories online, by the way, of women saying like, hey, well, I was 2 years into my marriage before I finally decided I loved the guy. But if that guy had given her like the 2 or 3 months in the beginning and not rushed her and been patient, then she would have had more solidified love for him and would have been head over heels for him after month 3. So be more patient this time around. You don't lose anything for being more patient, but as you can see from your previous situation, you can lose a lot. Your family, your house, half your stuff, if you are not patient, all right? So that's the first thing I wrote here. I said here, if you got divorced, chances are it means the way that you dated to get your now ex-wife had flaws in it. Dating today works the same way it always has. You were just also doing it wrong before. I'm sorry, my notes make me laugh. But yeah, so guys will come to me and say, well, I was in a relationship for 20 years and, I'm back out there on the market, but like dating has changed so much. Now, to be fair, there have been additions to facilitate dating. So things like dating apps. Hey, if you were a guy that was dating in the early 2000s and you're just getting divorced now, yeah, dating apps weren't around back then. Social media wasn't around. DMs weren't even around. So in terms of the communications things that are available, those things have changed, right? And also, to be fair, women feel more liberated these days to hook up faster, to put themselves all out there on social media, which you might feel uncomfortable about. Me as a guy, I don't feel comfortable dating any woman that's going to be showing her and flashing her stuff to the whole world, and not just me, But aside from that, the basics of dating in terms of what women are attracted to have been the same for years. Women like guys who are bold, that take a stance, that show leadership capabilities, that show the capacity to be able to take care of her. Not that you got to be a wholly rich guy, but you have money coming in to kind of know how to take care of her, and you know how to be able to talk to her to make her feel comfortable and to build trust. Those type of things have not gone away. So if you were in a relationship that ended up failing, there's a good chance that either A, she was like your first love and you didn't know what you were doing. She didn't know what she was doing. And so as you grew into the relationship and into the marriage, there were things that she was presenting to you that you didn't know how to react to. She had a complaint about something and you were just pushing to the side versus listening. Or you didn't know how to take a stance when she got mad at you and say, well, I don't care if you're mad about me about that. This is what I'm going to do, versus being like, yes, dear. I'm sorry, dear. Okay, dear. So you didn't have enough practice early on to even know how to date, let alone how to vet a person properly, Or maybe you're a person that dated a whole lot in the beginning and you just had failure after failure after failure. And then this one girl came along and she, got into sack with you and made it all happy. And you're like, oh my God, like she's the one for me. And then in the process, you didn't look after red flags. Because regardless of like how dating was back then versus now, most mistakes can stem from you were overhyped for a woman, you overextended yourself, you avoided looking at red flags or calling out red flags. You didn't really vet to see what kind of temper she had. You didn't really listen when she was telling you certain stories about her life that made her look like she'd actually be not a great partner, because you just wanted to hook up. You just wanted a family. You were getting older and wanted to settle down. People around you were also settling down and you thought you had to do it too. All those things are the reactionary reasons that your marriage failed, not the dating process itself. So again, if you learn the dating patterns that are going to be beneficial to you and learn the ones that are going to cause you to fail, then you will find in terms of your dating life, you'll be more patient, you'll be more confident, and you'll actually be able to properly vet. And more importantly, you'll take your time. Guys get this idea like, oh my God, I've been on like 3 dates with 3 different women. It's not working out. Dude, I'm telling you, especially you divorced guys, I know it sucks because you're ready to get into a relationship again now because you have relationship skills. It could take you 10, 20, 30 new dates with people before you finally find that one that might work out, okay? But you gotta know that, because if you know that, then you'll know, okay, this is all just part of the process, so let me go have my fun. Let me not put too much stress on this having to be a relationship. And this also goes back to the big thing is that a big major part of the reason your dating life was flawed is because you were focused so heavily on having to get into a relationship. That is the woman's job to focus on. Your job, you bring fun to the table, you bring conversation, you bring good hookups, and you do that stuff. And if you are consistent in doing those things, women will want to get in relationships with you, and it will come to you fast. Like, you'll think to yourself, I gotta get in a relationship right now. Well, what's better? You going on a date with a woman, after 2 weeks, she agrees to a relationship, but then the next week she dumps you, and that happens like 10 more times. Or you go out with one woman, and you're patient with this one woman, and you're not trying to rush this one woman into anything, and you're just trying to show this one woman fun, and then after 3 months, she comes to you and says, oh, so what are we? Are we gonna be in a relationship? That seems like a lot less work, and it's actually less time than you having to date 10 different people over the span of like 6 months to still end up with nobody, you know? So just consider that when you're going back out there into the dating realm. Another thing, learn the difference between being in spouse mode and date mode. This goes back to the whole relationships versus dating. Again, if you're trying to date to marry, that's fantastic, but that should not be your focus. Your focus should be on this person in front of you, showing them the best time they can possibly have for this date. If you do a good job on this date, the reward is you get a second date to do the same thing. And as you repeat that, a woman will start to see like, oh, he's consistent, he's trustworthy. When he sets a date, he shows up for it. He gives me the time and he does that. He does these other various things here. Our conversation has been consistently great. The consistency of these things is what's going to make it a relationship, okay? But it's suffice to say, if you're doing relationship style things or spouse mode style things when you're trying to date her, it's going to feel forced. It's going to feel like it's too much too soon. She's going to see you as needy and she's going to be out. So again, I know you want to be in a relationship again. Take spouse mode back on the shelf until she's actually a spouse. Take relationship mode and put it back on the shelf until you guys are actually in a relationship, until you've had those 2 or 3 months to really vet each other and for her to solidify her feelings, all right? In date mode, there are new skills you're gonna have to learn. I can help you with that. If you go to introvertdatingsuccess.com, sign up for coaching or sign up for any one of my books or programs, I promise you the knowledge in any of these things will help you, even the free webinar will help you get a leg up on what you should be doing in terms of being in date mode, okay? And then as she wants to be in a relationship, she'll be the one to help you transition into the relationship thing when she starts bringing it up. Another thing, be mindful of the ways in which you operated in your marriage that could also contribute to potential dating failures. So guys, this is where it's important. You gotta remove your ego. You can't be saying the divorce is all her fault. She did all the things. Even if she cheated on you, even if she ran off with your money, there were levels of this that you could have maybe been more observant. You could have been more patient in your marriage. Maybe you were too sensitive about things, or maybe like you let things like build up and pile up and you weren't cleaning the house right away. Like there could be a whatever, right? Whatever it is, learn the things that you were doing because we can't take accountability for her. She was a horrible person. It is what it is, blah, 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 right? You are responsible for you. So take a realistic look at what things could you have done better and what better ways could you have shown up, because you don't want to not do that and then have the next person you date complain about the same things that your now ex-wife was complaining about in the marriage. That is a benefit to you if you do that. Another note here, make sure that your traumas and issues you had about yourself are fixed or being worked on before bringing in another person. Hey, a lot of you guys go into marriages with unresolved issues from your childhood, from traumas that you had, and you ended up bringing that out or making your spouse be the one to pay for that. Or worse, you expected your spouse to be the one to fix how you felt about all these things from your past. That is not any person's job ever. Like, yes, they should be there to support you if you're going through some things, but in terms of like what you're bringing to the table and your baggage, that's your job to fix. Talk to a guy friend about it, talk to a therapist, figure out some way to get those under control, because again, if those are things that are unresolved, that could have very well also contributed to how you react. Think about this, right? Like, let's say, for example, you grew up in a home where you had a dad and a mom that were all about, you know, they never want, kids should be seen and not heard, and they would constantly yell at you and berate you, and when you wanted to speak up for yourself, they wouldn't allow you to do it, right? So now you go into your marriage, and she's just trying to bring a simple, hey, so this thing was bugging me about what you did, and you want to like overtalk her and berate her and tell her that's not a thing, blah, blah, blah. Why? You're reacting to generational trauma you got as a kid and aren't even aware of it. So your argumentative style, the way that you're presenting yourself in the marriage could be from some traumatic stuff that you haven't gotten over with yet. And guess what? At this point, if you bring that to the next relationship, it wasn't your ex's fault that happened. It's your fault for not getting that under control. So look at all those things, see what you got to fix, and don't bring that into your next relationship because it's not fair to that person. Let's see, something else here. If you have young kids, you may want to wait until they're a bit older to date. So if you have like a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, the reality is, as horny as you are and as much as you want to get out there and be on the field again, you have some younger people to consider. Now, granted, you might have 50-50 custody whereby she takes them one weekend, so you have time to go out there and date, whatnot, but it gets really hard in those formative years when it's like there's daycare, there's play times, there's all those other things. My recommendation, honestly, if you're going through a divorce as a guy, is you're gonna be better dating at the point where kids are going through their, we call like tenopause years, but they're teenage years where it's like, they're going to practices at school for music or sports, or they're hanging out more with their friends, and they're wanting less of your attention. Because at that point, while they're at school doing whatever, they got like a late night thing, they got to go to like a track meet or something like that, you now have more time to really focus on another person, because even though teenagers, they need you to be there, and they definitely need attention. I'm not taking away the fact that kids at any age need attention, but they're needing less of your helicoptering than they did when they were younger. And so it opens you up to have more of a chance to go out there and date. Now, teenagers can be, you're trying to replace their mom. That's his own separate fighting argument, and that's something you got to discuss with them. But I'm just saying it leaves it open a lot easier, ideally, Another thing, don't air out your baggage on dates and or future relationships. I kid you not. I have dated women who have gone through a divorce. And some of them, it's like, I never hear about their ex. It's in the past. It's been years since they've even seen or talked to her from their ex, and they are fully through whatever kind of trauma that divorce may have caused. I've also dated women that were fresh out of a relationship and fresh out of a marriage, and they couldn't stop mentioning this guy like every day. Like, just it'd be some random comment throughout the day, like, I had to talk to my ex today and this and that, like every day, So there's gonna be a balance there. And so just like I didn't want to hear that kind of crap, women aren't gonna want to hear from you every single day about my ex did this, my ex did that, my ex did this and that. Now, if she's in the picture still because you guys got kids or whatever, and you have to deal with her, then hey, you deal with her on your time. You go into your new girlfriend or person you're trying to date being like, my ex did this today, blah, 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 blah. Like, as much as you think this other person's gonna be there for you to listen, they don't actually want to hear that crap. They really don't, okay? So try to steer clear from that. If you're still bringing up the ex excessively, it means that you still have some unresolved baggage issues that you, again, on your own time, need to go and work out to make sure that you're not bringing that kind of energy onto dates with new people, all right? And then the last thing I said was how much dating experience you had before you divorced and how long you were married for will determine how awkward it feels to do it after your marriage. And with that said, you need to welcome the awkwardness. Now look, you might have been a guy that say he was in his 20s, you were hitting all kinds of trim every single weekend, right? You met the love of your life at like 24, you married her, and now you're 46 and you're getting divorced, right? Well, even though, quote unquote, dating has changed, the reality is that the stuff that you were doing back then, even if it's been locked away in your subconscious, with a little bit of practice, it's gonna be able to come out. You're gonna be able to start attracting women the way you did before, but you gotta know the way that you were attracting them before resulted in you getting your now ex-wife. So you have to reanalyze, okay, I know how to get women to be attracted to me, this is that, but like, what things do I have in place to make sure that the women I'm attracting are actually the right candidates for me going into my life forward, And that's why you should be very, very patient during the dating phase. You should be taking that 3 or 4 months to really get to know her and to really look at the ins and outs of like any red flags or previous story, et cetera, because those are probably things that admittedly, if you're being honest with yourself, you didn't do the best job of in the beginning. Now, you might have also been a guy, another type of guy that, again, you met this girl at your high school and you guys got along really well and you guys just, that was your first everything, your first hookup, your first dating experience, and then now she was your first wife and now you guys are divorced. So you never got into the practice of what dating feels like, what having to actually go up to women at bars or, hitting them up online or through mutual friends, like how that feels and what that process is. And I will tell you, guy, that there's definitely a method to the madness. Everything in life has a process and a way that it functions to get the maximum result. And dating is the same way. This is why I have a whole video program. This is why I have a whole YouTube channel, because I have learned the process that it takes to effectively be able to go out there, place yourself in the right places, and be able to attract women, date women, properly vet women, and then get with the ones that are going to best serve you, okay? But just like anything else in life that you don't know how to do, when you first start trying to learn this stuff, it's gonna feel awkward, especially if you're with somebody that the first person you married, the person you married was the first person you ever did anything with, right? So all your practice is based on her. So first off, you gotta now remove about 90% of the things that you did for her, because the women coming along, they're gonna like a few of those things, but they're gonna be different than your wife was, you know? And then secondly, going into the dating process of things, there are things during the dating process that you never learn that when you first learn them are gonna sound weird, are gonna sound like, but why would that work? You know, for example, I tell guys in here all the time on my show, hey, after a first date, you have a good time, don't call it for 4 days. Well, if you've been in a marriage for 20 or 30 years and you're divorced now, you're used to talking to this girl, to a girl every single day. Why would you suddenly go and not do that? Like that's gonna feel weird and awkward, not seeing this person every day, but aren't you supposed to be building a relationship? No, you're dating. Aren't you supposed to be building a relationship and making sure you guys like each other? And so these are the thoughts you're gonna go into. And so you're gonna hear things that I say, that other gurus say, that say in terms of getting a girl from you just met her to being in a relationship, these are the steps you take, these are the actions you do, these are the things you don't do, these are the conversations you have, these are the things that you say and don't say. It's gonna feel like you're restricted because you're like, but I had a life where like I was open and honest with this person like all the time. And it's not even saying that you can't become that person eventually or have that kind of relationship. But the dating process for women is her trying to see if you're gonna be consistent in various certain actions, none of which have to do with actual relationship stuff, you know? She doesn't need to see how consistent you are in texting her every single day, because that's gonna be an overwhelming activity. But she does need to see that you're a man of your word, that when you say you're gonna show up someplace for a date, you're gonna do it, that you're gonna effectively know how to take care of her and, you know, treat her like a lady. Like, those are things she needs to see from you, all right? So it might feel weird that you're holding back on things that you didn't have to hold back on before with your now ex, right? But again, welcome the awkwardness. Just because it feels awkward doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's new to you, and it's gonna take you some time to get used to the things that you're now doing. And don't skimp out, or don't think like a lot of guys will be like, you know, oh, this is just too hard. Women are all crazy. Women operate differently than we expect. And part of the reason you got divorced, honestly, is because you weren't aware of that. You weren't aware that the way in which women think about things, how they feel about things, why they see things this way versus us seeing it some other different way are different. You might have had arguments with your wife over just a simple matter of your perspective and lens on a particular situation or a particular train of thought were different. And instead of being like, oh, as a woman, for her being a woman, I can totally get why she'd have that standpoint. You're trying to make her think like a guy. And women don't want to think like guys. So all this to say, like, yeah, there's going to be parts of this that are awkward. You're learning new things. You're getting rid of old things that didn't actually work in the relationship, but you're trying to figure out what that new thing's going to be to replace the old thing that you would habitually do, so that way it'll work more effectively for this woman. Welcome all of it, because the end result, if you get through the awkward part, is you understand women better, you know how to connect with them better, and you're able to pick a more reliable partner that ideally is gonna work a lot better this time around. Again, the stats are not in your favor, but part of that's because most guys go back out there and end up unintentionally finding somebody that is very similar to the people that they dated before, which is why these guys go on to have 3, 4, 5 ex-wives. They end up dating the same person every single time, or worse, they don't change how they were operating because they think they're so great, I should just be able to be myself, and how I am right now is totally fine. And the reality is you might have work on yourself. Like, I know part of when I was a bad dater was that I wasn't aware of things I was saying jokingly, or, you know, ways that I was moving that made women less attracted to me in the long run. So I had to learn those things. It is not a fun journey. It is not a fun thing to have to look at yourself and say, I wish I could say that I'm cool as I am now, but I guess the world's saying I'm not. But if you are able to drop your ego and get through that and really learn stuff and fight through the awkward feelings of dating, then the end result will be that you can finally find somebody that's going to work out for long term for real this time, So hopefully some of what I said today has helped you out. And hey, I'd love to hear your comments in the chat. I'd love you to comment down and talk about what was it like for you going through a divorce? What was it like trying to get back on the saddle? You guys that have been through a divorce, you can give some tips down below. If you've gotten back into a new relationship that's been successful, leave comments down below for guys that are going through this so they know what to look forward to and how they can also break through and be able to date more effectively this second time around, all right? And hey guys, if you want some one-on-one coaching to really help get your life back on track, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and click on the coaching tab. I would love to have a one-on-one phone consultation with you to help you figure out the ins and outs of what went wrong in your relationship, how you can be a better person, how you can fix things, and give you some really tailored steps specific to your situation on what you can do to get your dating life back on track. Again, I offer coaching at introvertdatingsuccess.com under the coaching tab. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Harry Dating Conversations. If you have a topic you'd like to see me cover on one of these shows, you can write to me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. You can also leave a comment down below. I read all comments and I usually get back to them on one of these shows as well, right? In the meantime, if you need help with your dating life, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com. You can click on the products tab, check out our eBooks, audiobooks, and programs, as well as my free webinar, 3 nice guy dating patterns that turn women off and what to do instead. All these things are designed to help you date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. I'm Harry Wilmington, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Harry Dating Conversations. I'm out. Peace.